Hello, everybody, and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm talking about chronic nervous system dysregulation that happens as a result of experiencing enmeshment trauma and growing up in an enmeshed family system. So we begin our lives fused to the nervous system of our closest attachment figures. First and foremost, our mother. We literally develop inside of her body, inside of her womb, within the context of her nervous system and whatever emotional states that she experiences from moment to moment. Then the process of growth and maturation and differentiation has us slowly starting to separate from our mother. The first experience of that being birth, right? We actually become a separate body that's able to survive outside of the context of her body. So we cut that umbilical cord and now we're this sort of separate being. We have a separate encasing, we have our own nervous system, we have our own organ systems. And then slowly throughout the process of development, throughout our lives, we become more and more autonomous. This doesn't mean that we stop needing other people. We absolutely do. We are a social species. We have a realistic dependence on others. It just means that we become more differentiated and autonomous if we have a healthy developmental process. So first, we're physically fused to our caregivers, and first and foremost, our mothers, like I mentioned. And then we are emotionally fused in the early stages of life, and healthy development has us become more and more emotionally autonomous if we get our developmental needs met. Now, what happens in a securely attached and differentiated family system is that your parents help you with that process of emotional differentiation by one, modeling regulation themselves. So they are typically, on average, more regulated than not. If they're not, then they can model healthy regulation practices for you. So if they get angry, they can regulate themselves. And so they're modeling that behavior for you. You are watching them in real time do that. Okay, another way that they help us is by co-regulating with us. If we are dysregulated, if we experience some sort of strong emotion as a result of something that happens, they can lean in and help us regulate with them. And then explicitly teach us. So that's another way that we learn. They explicitly teach us how to regulate ourselves over time. They may talk us through taking deep breaths or going for a walk with us, something like this to help us learn how to regulate ourselves. This happens in a healthy and differentiated family system. What happens in enmeshed family systems is that there is a lot of emotional immaturity. Our parents are not regulated. They are chronically dysregulated, more often dysregulated than not. There are unclear emotional boundaries, so they are projecting their emotions onto us, and they are making us feel responsible for those emotions in many ways. They are using us to regulate themselves, and we are absorbing those emotional states from them. So they're chronically dysregulated, and we're absorbing their chronic dysregulation as well. So we don't learn how to self-regulate, and we can't rely on them for regulation. So we are living in our own chronic state of dysregulation. We learn to disconnect from our own emotional experience in order to live in their emotional experience. We absorb their dysregulation. We feel responsible for their emotions. And so we don't learn how to deal with our own. We don't learn how to self-regulate. We can't rely on them to be regulated and to help us regulate when we're dysregulated. So again, we carry this chronic state of dysregulation inside of our nervous systems throughout life. Now, what this leads to in adulthood is a whole set of issues. I'm just going to name some of them here, but there are many beyond this. And this creates even more, it essentially escalates, because that chronic dysregulation leads to all sorts of other issues that perpetuate further the dysregulation. First and foremost, mental and emotional health conditions like depression, like anxiety, like ADHD, okay? Physical conditions that are induced by chronic stress, like heart disease, diabetes, Alzheimer's in later life. It can lead to relational issues, unstable relationships with high conflict, with reactivity, with avoidance and distance and cutoff and separation and divorce that is coming from that chronic dysregulation. So imagine a couple who both are chronically dysregulated and therefore are in conflict with each other constantly and can't repair or resolve their conflicts in order to create more emotional intimacy and emotional stability and emotional safety in their connection. So a lot of the issues that I see in couples are coming from the two of them having developmental trauma that's not healed. And they're chronically dysregulated and they're attacking each other as a result of that versus regulating themselves and helping each other co-regulate in order to work as a team. And so often what I see is people dealing with this by separating and cutting off instead of healing individually and then healing relationally. Another can be work and vocational issues, like struggling to commit to a particular career path or to a particular job and find financial stability. Or it can be overcommitting, so overextending yourself to the point of burnout because you're trying to please everybody else and you don't know how to set boundaries or regulate yourself and take care of your own emotional states. It can be it can lead to compulsions and addictions that are essentially used to cope with and regulate the chronic dysregulation, eating compulsions, substance use. I know for me, it showed up as using food as a coping mechanism. For my partner with substances. It can be like relationship addictions and other process and behavioral addictions. So we're using those addictions and those compulsions to regulate our chronic dysregulation. It can show up as parenting issues. In our closest emotional attachments, that's where our emotional dysregulation is most going to show up. And we continue passing down those same patterns that we were parented with because we repeat it. It's unconscious until we become conscious of it and start to take an active effort toward changing that and becoming more regulated so that we can parent our own children from a more regulated place instead of passing down the chronic dysregulation. Okay. So, how do we begin healing this? So, the first step is awareness, guys. And I want you to understand how important, how difficult, and how meaningful the step of awareness is. Most people will spend their entire lives without reaching this step. So, please do not underestimate the meaning and the significance and the importance of awareness. If you are here today watching this video and you have acknowledged that there's some sort of issue that you want to start working on, you have made one of the biggest and most important steps. You've taken one of the biggest and most important steps in the healing process. So please give yourself credit for that and do not undermine the importance of this. So, enmeshment trauma and the chronic dysregulation that results from it, it's like a freight train. It has huge momentum, huge gravity, a lot of weight that's accelerating and escalating. So, for you to notice it and begin hitting the brakes on it is a huge deal. And it's not easy, okay? It's going to take time. So, take it slow, be patient with yourself, accept that it's a gradual process that's going to probably take several years, if not decades. And that it's okay, it's worth it. It's painful and it sucks that this was the hand that you were dealt, but it is the hand that you were dealt. And I think the only thing more painful than the healing process is to not heal and to stay in the same patterns, that in the same chaos, in the same, chronic dysregulation that you were in before. So healing first is awareness and acceptance of what's going on. And then I think the next step is to begin getting centered in ourselves. So if we grow up in this type of environment, we're typically kind of getting lost in the chaos that's surrounding us. We're living inside of the dysfunction and the reactivity, and we're being pulled in one direction and the other, and we're getting reactive ourselves, and we're perpetuating the same escalation of the dysregulation inside of ourselves and inside of the family system. So the first step is to, once you become aware, to begin pulling your energy center back into yourself and to find your center of gravity within your own body, to begin paying attention to the different activation states that are happening inside of your body and nervous system in any given moment in time. I know it sounds kind of woo-woo when I talk about it like this, but it really is happening at a visceral and physiological level because, again, our nervous system is being shaped in the early stages of life when we're inside of the womb in the first years of our infancy. And so it really is much more of a physical and visceral experience. Our nervous system and our body is in the wiring, the patterning is being shaped at a physiological level in the early stages of life. So you got to come back to the body. The regulation is body centered. And so recognizing, how can I bring my energy center, my my focus, my radius back to myself, instead of being inside of others' emotional experience, inside of their nervous systems, inside of their reactivity. How can I come back to what's going on in my body, get centered, settle my body, ground my energy, and from there begin working toward the next steps? Okay, so again, first, awareness, starting to observe the system from the outside, and then grounding yourself, finding your center of gravity inside of yourself, centering yourself again, and committing to focusing on changing you, okay, regulating yourself. From there, you're going to create a baseline state of internal and external security. So you're becoming a secure base for yourself. You are finding stability in yourself because you cannot find it in your family system. You cannot rely on your family system to teach you how to be stable or to provide stability for you. That should have been where you learned it, and that should have been where you had it available as a resource, but you didn't. So don't go there looking for it. You have to create it inside of yourself. You have to teach yourself the thing and provide yourself the thing that you did not experience in your own family system. Okay? That's the process of healing. Parenting yourself, creating an internal state of stability, and also changing the external environment as to the best of your capacity in order to also provide more stability for yourself. You're going to have to get used to what stability feels like, because when you grow up in chaos, we get very comfortable and used to chaos. And actually, our nervous systems are not used to experiencing stability. Stability can feel like boredom. So it is retraining ourselves to understand what stability and routine and predictability look like and feel like. Okay. So firstly, internal and external stability. Internal stability looks like caring for your body, caring for your nervous system, providing it with predictability and routine, sleeping better, eating better, exercising in a healthy way, in a healthy amount, doing daily practices that regulate your emotions, that calm your body. Could be meditation, could be breath work, could be journaling, could be going for a walk in nature. Whatever that looks like for you, you need to find your own practice to regulate your nervous system, to find a state of calm and neutrality. At least understand what that feels like. You may not spend the whole day in that state, of course. Life calls for various internal states, but it's to teach yourself what inner stability, calm, and neutrality look like. And then again, externally, structuring your environment and setting boundaries in order to reduce the amount of dysregulation. So that may look like, cleaning your room and creating a safe space inside of it for you to come into and regulate yourself. I know for me, I had to create a tiny little sanctuary in my home. Warm lighting, soft blankets, quiet music, so that when I would start to notice myself getting activated, I would come in and I would settle myself again, come back to myself. It means setting boundaries as well. I know that for many of you, when you grow up in this chaos, it's very typical that you become chaotic as well. And that's not a negative, that's not a judgment or a criticism. It's just what we learn. So we repeat the same thing. And so, we're doing 100 different activities and we're moving from thing to thing to thing. And we have a really difficult time with stillness. We never say no to anything. We never actually stop to think about, do I really need to do 4 activities today? Do I need to say yes to every invitation that I had offered to me this weekend? Can I just stay home 5 out of the 7 days of the week and learn to be comfortable in that stability and in that self-care and in that sanctuary, in that stillness? So creating external stability by setting boundaries, starting to say no to yourself, starting to say no to others, and creating more time where you are just practicing stillness and stability and routine and predictability, teaching your nervous system that inner stability. I want you to become very, very self-aware. So journaling, I don't automatically prescribe it to everyone because I know for different people it doesn't work, or you may have another practice that works better for you. But I think journaling and learning to track our triggers and learning to pay attention to our patterns and to what activates us, and what dysregulates us is super important, so that you become an expert on yourself, become an expert on what's going on inside of you as you are interacting with the world. From there, you're going to learn what your nervous system needs from moment to moment, and you, like a loving parent, learning to respond to those needs in a way that your family system didn't respond to those emotional needs and to your nervous system's needs. So you may notice that in a moment what you need is relaxation and rest, or you may need solitude, or you may need connection, or you may need boundaries, or you may need to play and feel joy and laugh. So learning, again, that self-awareness is going to teach you what your different nervous system states are from moment to moment. And the responsiveness is going to help you learn how to respond to what your nervous system needs in any given moment. And then from there, once you start to feel more stable, more predictable, more grounded, more centered, you can begin expanding your capacity outward, including more things into your routine, including more people into your environment. So we create more stimulation from the stable, still base, instead of living in the constant stimulation and not knowing how to ground ourselves ever. So first we ground, then we expand, right? We root to sort of rise, kind of like a tree. The tree creates the roots, and from there, the branches and the leaves and the flowers and the fruits expand outward, right? Without roots, that tree is toppling over. So you need to create your roots here, because you were not taught how to create your own roots, and your family system did not provide those roots for you. So now you got to learn how to be that for yourself. And this is how you heal the chronic dysregulation over time. Now, remember, guys, it is a very slow and gradual process. It's simple, but it's not easy. I use the metaphor of like losing weight. I have a really good friend who's trying to lose 75 pounds. The process of losing weight is very simple. You just got to eat less. I mean, you got to consume less than you expend. You got to expend more than you consume. Plain and simple. You got to have some sort of an energy deficit every single day. So eat less, move more. It's quite simple, but it's probably one of the hardest things that we can do in our lives, because it's a stressful process. It requires discipline. It requires facing stress and your emotions on a day-to-day basis. It requires sticking to the thing even when it gets hard. It requires patience. It's probably going to take her about a year to lose it in a healthy way, right? So it's similar here. We're learning new skills in this process of healing from enmeshment, of healing the chronic dysregulation and becoming more stable for ourselves. It's just a simple process of skill building, but it's one of the hardest things we can do, because we are unlearning and relearning close to, for some of you, 3, 4, 5 decades of learned patterns of the opposite behavior. So I know that when you're in the chaos, and that when you're in the unpredictability, and when you're in the reactivity, and when you're in the dysfunction, and you start to experience collapse and pain and burnout from it all, it can feel helpless and hopeless, and you don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. And it seems like a huge emotional weight, a huge burden. It can feel like there's the weight of the world on your shoulders, and you have no idea how to get out of that. And you have no hope for how to get out of that, or path for how to get out of that. And so I'm here to tell you there is a light at the end of the tunnel, guys. I can promise you that. I have been there. I work with hundreds of people who have been there, or who are there right now and are slowly working their way out. There is a light at the end of the tunnel. It's just going to take you time and lots of gradual effort and emotional discomfort to get to that light at the end of the tunnel. You got to walk the path, and it's a slow and gradual process of skill building. So I did a video on my channel yesterday. Go check that one out. 10 emotional skills for the reparenting process. And I promise you, if you learn those skills, you'll be set. The healing process is within those skills right there. However, it's not so simple. They're 10 simple, well, it's not so easy. They're 10 simple skills, but it takes a lot of effort, a lot of work, and oftentimes years or decades in order to ingrain those skills. because you weren't taught them. It's not your fault. You should have been taught them when you were 3, 4, 5, 10 years old, and you weren't, unfortunately. So now you got to teach them to yourselves. Okay? All right, guys. Thank you so much for being here. Be sure to check out the link in my description below for the new ways you can work with me. So I have a membership here on YouTube that I've launched where I'm going to be doing deeper dives, so monthly workshops and Q&As for you all in a private community. And I'm launching an in-depth exclusive group coaching program for healing enmeshment coming in the new year. So be sure to click the link in the description below if you want to find out more about that and apply to be a part of the program. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you in the next video.